friends, so choosing yourself. We say this around here often, and you know, it's time we talk about what that really means so that we can understand it and practice it better. We spend a lot of time choosing everything but ourselves sometimes, don't we? I know I certainly have. We put our needs and wants aside for the sake of preserving a relationship, or not upsetting someone who's important to us, or simply because we aren't confident enough to assert ourselves out loud. So instead, we just take what comes along and make the best of it. We try to make things work because it always seems easier than just saying, nope, I don't want that, I'm rejecting it completely, let's start from zero again. And one of the ways we really fail to choose ourselves is by constantly pursuing and putting enormous amounts of time and energy into people who do not choose us. I have said this before, but it's worth repeating because Lord knows that in the past I have definitely needed this reminder too. Self-abandonment in service of another actually serves no one. Sometimes we adopt self-abandonment habits so deeply that they remain way beyond the relationship or reason that you took them on in the first place. And it turns into part of who you are as a person now. A people pleaser. Someone who has difficulty in saying no without enormous guilt. A perfectionist to the point of paralysis. Someone who is overly codependent. Someone who hides parts of yourself. Someone who lets other people talk you out of desires or hopes. Someone who refuses to fix or tend to things in our lives that very obviously and overwhelmingly need fixing and attention. There are lots more things that I could mention, but I think you get the point here. Look, I won't lie to you. It can take a lot of effort to change habits like those that we just talked about because they become such ingrained behaviors. And if it were a matter of those things only affecting you, then you might think, okay, well, so I have some unresolved things kicking around, and they're stopping me from doing X, Y, and Z, but isn't that just my problem and not anyone else's? But the thing is that more often than not, it doesn't affect only you. And look, if you have a problem that's stopping you from being your best self, then you should want to find a solution or to fix that, right? You should want to have a happy, healthy relationship with yourself because that will permeate everything else you do. Everything. And on the flip side of that, ignoring those issues does affect other people. It does cause damage that goes beyond just you. For example, when you refuse to tend to or fix things that need attention in your life, which I mentioned earlier, what happens? Do you ignore those problems and they just miraculously disappear, like poof? I wish that was the case, but sadly, no. The problems will generally remain until you address them. So, when you have some unresolved pain or trauma, for example, and you block yourself from feeling and processing those things instead of healing them, you're going to take that self-abandonment and project it onto other people, even if you don't do it intentionally. You form only superficial, fleeting connections with others because you can't put those walls down. You can't feel deeply for anyone else because you cannot even feel it for yourself. In these situations, make no mistake about it, nobody wins. This is why we talk so much about the importance of processing the things that have happened to you in the past, the feelings, the trauma, the mistakes, the disappointments, and so on. Because, as I'm sure you have heard many times before, when you do not know history, you are doomed to repeat it. You don't have to just know it, though. You have to understand it as well. You have to know the why behind the things that you do so that you can stop doing those things when they don't work. In other words, life lessons, people, they have a funny way of coming along over and over until you actually learn them. And this here, a failure to course correct, to put it simply, is one of the biggest lessons we are ever given to learn. I'd say that reading all the self-help books and watching all the videos and doing all the exercises will enable you to skip a grade on that one and not deal with it, but it won't. Unfortunately, experience is the teacher of this class, and there are no cliff notes for it. Oof, I just realized that there's someone likely watching this and going, what the hell are cliff notes? I just dated myself big time. Anyway, the point of all of this is that one of the biggest ways that you choose yourself is when you stop doing all of that, when you stop practicing self-abandonment and instead you focus on self-trust, self-empowerment, self-examination, whatever you want to call it. Basically, you choose to address the things in your life that you already know are not working, and you commit to making the changes necessary to make those things better. And with that said, choosing yourself also means you have your own back, always. You don't self-betray for the sake of validation, or for somebody to like you, or for you to fit in, or to keep the peace. You actually don't need validation from others at all, people, even though today's world can certainly make you crave it or even feel like you need it. You have like 257 ways to share whatever you want about your life anytime you want, right in your pocket. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. I mean, who doesn't like to get a compliment or a little thumbs up of attention or something? But when you become something different for the sake of those things, when you stop choosing the real you and start giving priority to a persona or a character that you're basically playing that you know is not authentic, that's where you run into trouble, because now you have blurred the lines between what is real and what is not. Choosing yourself also means that you set healthy and comfortable boundaries, that you set limits on what you will tolerate and expectations for what you want from your relationships with others. And if the person you're in a relationship with cannot give that to you, you choose to let go. Sometimes that means walking away from somebody you really care about, and that's tough. But if someone is not positively contributing to your narrative, then they're detracting from it. This is also one of the biggest ways we self-abandon friends, by choosing people that are not for you over and over and continuing to cling on to that choice, hoping that someday things will change, perhaps they will change. But you know as well as I do that we can figuratively pound square pegs into round holes for years, and that peg is still not going to fit in the end. All you're going to end up with is a tired hand and probably a sore thumb that you whacked a few times. Oh, and a pile of regrets and laments on why you didn't quit sooner. But alas, only hindsight is 20/20. Annoying, right? But there's something that I know I have personally learned from experiences like that, and maybe you have too. When something turns out to be not for you, and you stop holding space for it, you let it go and you release your attachment to it, something that is for you comes along, something better. And that something will just fit. No sore thumb or mallet required on that. Choosing yourself also means that you don't focus on things like grudges or revenge or getting back at people for something that they did. Those emotions don't serve any other purpose really other than to distract your energy from other more important things, like the future and possibilities. And look, I know, when someone wrongs you, this is often the go-to emotion. You want people to pay for what they did. But you know, as I have gotten older, I've learned something that I'll admit was not easy for me to buy into. And that thing is, no debt in the universe goes unpaid. Not a single one. In other words, understand karma and trust it to collect your debts for you. It may not happen tomorrow or even next week, but trust me, it will. I say this with 100% faith and confidence because I have seen it in action in my own life. I tell people often that karma loves me because not a single person who has wronged me or hurt me or played me for a fool has ended up in a better situation. In fact, they have ended up, in the words of Shakespeare's Hamlet, hoisted on their own petard. In 21st century lingo, they played themselves. Big time. I don't take any joy in that, by the way. I'm not out here with my popcorn waiting for a new episode of somebody's shit show. I don't wish people ill. I don't have any feelings about them at all, actually. I'm indifferent. I always tell people that that is the worst place they can ever want to be with me. Indifference, I mean, because it's a place that nobody ever comes back from. I've passed that assignment on to Karma, who is more than capable of handling it. So, if I had to summarize all of these points about choosing yourself with just one or two sentences, it would be this. Basically, choosing yourself means that you are committing to the life that you know you want to live. Period. The life that you can live if you stop compromising on the things that you need to do to get there. It means you choose to do what is best for you, your well-being, your mental health, your happy and healthy life. It means you will not choose to do what other people want you to do, what other people expect you to do, what other people tell you to do, if that is not what you know in your heart of hearts is right. You do want to do what you know is best for you. Period. Choosing yourself is a lot of things, but there is one definitive thing that it is not. It is never about somebody else. It's only about you. And really, isn't that the way that it should be? You are always going to be the most important project you will ever work on. Doesn't that very important project deserve only your best efforts, the most attention, the most empathy, the most understanding, the most patience? Of course it does. So stop wasting those precious resources on things or people who aren't worth that kind of self-compromise. So how do you get started with choosing yourself? Just like you do with any other project, friends, with small steps. What those steps are will be up to you, but I promise you that if you commit to making even just one choice that is for you, it will get easier to make those kinds of choices more frequently. If you need a reminder, come back and watch this video again. But my hope is that you won't need to, as strange as that may sound, because you will intimately know this universal truth. You can quit doing a lot of things in life, but never, ever on making yourself a priority. That's all I've got for you this week. I'll be back next week with a priority message, or maybe a few, hint, hint. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.